All right, let's go in. Holding Maimer Zayin, Parak Aleph. We discussed in the last time. We'll read the Kitzur in a second. But we discussed in the last Maimer that you have a notion that there is shefa, there is some kind of sustenance that's given to things which deny the existence of God, things that are on the other side, things which oppose Him. And Hashem gives these things the chayei, and it's not necessarily a bad relationship. They're doing what Hashem wants. They acknowledge Hashem's existence. They say, yeah, in the way that they exist, they necessarily deny the existence of God. It's their nature. It's what they are. They're not upset about it. They receive shefa from Hashem in a way that Hashem gives it as more like a business relationship than a personal relationship, and they're fine with that, and that's their life, and it's good for them. Now, a yid. Any human really, but a yid particularly, can get chayei through the klipa if he supports the klipa. And when he supports the klipa gives him a cut of the chayei that it gets. However, Hashem isn't particularly happy with a yid getting chayei from the klipa, with a yid getting chayei from the chenes achirayim, from the side of getting over the shoulder, the non-personal relationship. Hashem isn't happy with that. Hashem isn't fine with that. Hashem doesn't let that last. But in Galus, to a certain degree, this is how we get our chayei. We get our chayei through klipa, and or at least a certain degree of our chayei. So now we're going to discuss what is the difference really between the two kinds of chayei: the chayei that you get through klipa and the chayei that you get through not through klipa, through b'chinas panim, through the level of Hashem giving it in a desirable way. And just as a reminder, we can't forget the pasuk Yisparach B'Glavi Leimer Shalom Yiyali Ki V'Shiris Levi Elech L'man Tzvei Sarav Asitzvei. That, and this is what it brings in the Kitzur again, that a person will reassure himself that even though he's going in the way of his heart, he's going to have peace. The reason why he's reassured that he's going to have peace is because he knows that he can get life force from the klipa. He's able to connect the not thirsty nefesh Bahamas. The nefesh Bahamas isn't thirsty because it has whatever it wants is always in front of it. It could always make a teva out of thin air and enjoy something in the world. And he connects the nefesh Bahamas to the nefesh Alikis. And when a person does that, he knows he can get his chayei, he can get his satiation from the klipa. So, v'hinei ha'akum hinei kol kabbalas shifam hu me'achareim. Goyim who serve avodah zarah, they get all of their chayei from Hashem in a way of achirayim. They get all of their chayei from Hashem in a way that He's giving it reluctantly. Aval Yisrael mukablim shifam me'apnimius. But Yidden receive their shefa, they receive their sustenance from the level of pnimius. What about a guy that doesn't serve avodah zarah? I've seen a lot of interesting halachic opinions about are they considered some geder to be like a yid or whatever. The point is, they're more negad. Where they're getting their shefa from depends on where they lean into. Goyim that serve avodah zarah, their bodies they're made out of klipas negad. It's brought down immediately into gimel klipas hatimeis. That they're able to. That's in a sense that's where it's like natural for them to get from. A guy that doesn't serve avodah zarah, he can go technically either way. If he's doing good things, he's doing good things, and he's getting shefa from a good place. And if he's doing bad things, he's doing bad things.
But if Hashem gives it reluctantly, why? Let's use someone who is Hindu, because that's pure avodah zarah.
Yeah.
Let's say that there are billionaires, there's many of them. Why does Hashem give them that type of financial ability? Just using an easy example. Why is He giving them so much if He's giving it reluctantly?
The classic question of why do the wicked have good? And
I know the Tanya talks about it.
It's Eiv talks about it. It's one of the Eiv is a book that possibly predates Matan Torah. Some opinions are, and I believe this is Rashi's opinion, that Eiv was a son-in-law of Yaakov. He married Dinah. I don't know, so during some period, he was friends with Eliphaz, who was the son of Esav. One of the characters' names is Eliphaz. The point is, this is a question which is very philosophical, etc., etc. Why does Hashem give it? Hashem ultimately has a desire for every person that He created in the world, and the reason why, in general, He'll give good in this world is because, there's a system of checks and balances, and Hashem doesn't leave any debt unpaid. So when a person does good, even a minute amount of good, Hashem needs to reward it in this world, because Hashem doesn't want to stay in debt. As the phrase in Yiddish goes, the Eibusher bleibt nicht dabei chayv. So when you have a goy and he does a little bit of good, Hashem will reward him in this world so that he's not in debt in the world to come. But as far as that's the question that's an asked and answered question about different things. Over here, the point really, and it is a good question. Why is it that Hashem gives chayes in a level of achirayim? Why is it that Hashem taka gives the chayes? So with that being said, again, remember everything that Hashem created in the world, including the klipa, is there to ultimately serve the purpose of creation, which is to obtain him. But everything serves Hashem. Everything ultimately serves Hashem.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm late.
Good. Everything ultimately serves Hashem, and these goyim that are attacking serving by the Zara, firstly, they don't know better. They could be getting their chayes from a bad place. It's not like they're bad people per se. It's an important thing to understand that you could have a person that does something wrong. It doesn't necessarily know that they're doing something wrong. There's a reason why it's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah on us that if we're ever attacking a nation, that we need to offer them peace. I mean, to say stop serving idols and to keep Shabbat mitzvahs and we want to have peace with you. It's one of the things that it's pashut mitzvah to say on us. So, but the klipa and the goyim, etc., the people that are getting their chayes from klipa, it's not that they're necessarily denying Hashem. They could be doing ultimately what Hashem wants in the world, and that's a good reason to get shefa. This is why the klipa gets shefa. This is why you have a Yetzer Hara, that the Yetzer Hara has a chayes and it has a brand. The Yetzer Hara is mamish, very, very from. There's once a chassid, I forgot his name, and I have to continue because I thought it was short. It is short, but it's short. Wow, it's very short.
Yeah.
So okay, I don't mind elaborating then. There's a chassid that he said that one of his inspirations for Avodas Hashem is the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is mamish from. The Yetzer Hara doesn't sleep. He'll always, at any hour of the night, you wake up in the middle of the night, he knows what he wants from you. He's constantly on the ball and serving Hashem. And he said, the Yetzer Hara is my inspiration. I should be like the Yetzer Hara, that I should be caring so much about it. The Yetzer Hara's job is to get a person to do Averis. And that's his job. That's what he's made for, that's what he's designed for. And Taka, it's a pretty rough job when you consider that the tachlis of Bris Elam is to make a derba tachtanim, and he's technically actively fighting against that. I guess you could say he's like a white hat hacker. I think that's what they call it. He's like the people that they hack into computers to try to find the weaknesses so that you can then patch the weaknesses.
That's it.
So, but yeah, that's the point. The point is that so goyim get from Bechinas Achirayim. You didn't get from you didn't get their chayes from Primus. Amna Misha Chata Fasha Garam Sila Karatzin Mimenu was someone that sins and he's negligent and he causes that Hashem's will, Hashem's desire should leave him in the sense that he's not doing what Hashem wants. And then he's receiving his sustenance like animals. And he takes the first portion from what he draws to the Sitra Akra. But this hashpa, this sustenance, I keep on saying sustenance. Maybe at one point I'll explain Shafa and Arab or whatever. But this sustenance that he receives from Hashem will ultimately break. We can explain this based on what we explained before. By the level of panim v'akar that you have in Hashem's upper will. The level of panim is everything that Hashem ultimately wants, and which is the whole side of Kedusha. Anything which is holy is something that Hashem wants in the world. But the Sitra Akra, the other side, gets it from the level of Achirayim. It's getting it from Hashem, like Hashem giving it over his shoulders. And he doesn't have a desire in them. And Adraba, they're an abomination to him, and he gives them without it being his desire. But rather like a person that gives over his shoulder. So it's sort of it's funny in a sense, but definitively things which are holy are things which Hashem ultimately has a desire for, and things which are not holy Hashem ultimately doesn't have a desire for. Now, is interesting because when Mashiach comes, a lot of things which are not holy, we're going to take and we're going to be able to transform into holiness. So, in a sense, everything in the world, even something that's not holy, like could theoretically have redemption, could have a place. But the notion of something being opposed to Hashem, that notion is not something which receives from Bechinas Panim, it receives from Bechinas Achirayim. And an explanation of the concept could be understood by way of example. When the king makes a banquet for all of his ministers and servants, he can spend a lot of money on this feast. שיאכלו וישתו וישקלו ויסענגו מכל מחל שולחן המלך וכמה מינים עד עני מלך וכו'. And certainly the kavanah that the king has for the intention that the king has behind making the feast, spending all of the money, is not only for the sake of the great ministers and the chashuv servants, that they should be able to eat and drink and become drunk and have pleasure from all of the foods of the king's table, from all of the delights of the king. You also have people that... Sorry, I misread that kind of. I went sort of ahead. Obviously, the intention of the king wasn't to spend all of the money. The intention of the king was that his ministers and etc. should be able to enjoy the feast. I read it like as one thing. But yeah, you also have, by the feast of the king, also lowly people, like servants and maids that are small and lowly, the ones that sit behind the millstones. The servants that we referred to before are the servants that are like, the kind of people that sign off their fancy letter with their big plumed feathers saying, "You're humble servants." Like they're the people that serve in the king's court, like they're servants of the king. There's other servants which are like the servants that make the food. And the servants that make the food aren't the ones that we're getting there. That these servants are going to eat from the leftovers of the food. The king is very economical. Why throw out good food? Especially in Australia, you have the garbage. You have like one garbage can, so all of the scraps go to the servants. But the servants don't eat. Like the bones go to the dogs. You can't say that the king made the whole feast for the sake of the scraps which were eaten by the servants and by the maidservants which sit behind the millstones, the ones that make the food, or the dogs and the like. Certainly the king didn't make the feast with the intention to spend even one dime on them. I don't know what's the equivalent of a prota over here. About
5 cents?
5 cents maybe. Rak kasher pizer mamin rav. But rather, he spent the money. His intention, his desire for spending the money, was for the sake of the chashuv ministers. So then, once he was giving a shefa to the important ministers, so then you also have in a chitzenistic way that after the fact that you're making a feast for the ministers, you also have that the other servants get to eat. And this is a level of shefa that comes in a way of chitzonius. It comes in a way of agav. It comes in a way of it's casual. It just happened. I'm trying to think of what's a good translation of agav. This would be a good thing to know. But agav is like when you have one thing and it comes after. This is a good example of agav. If you have a feast for ministers and you have also the other people, they have derech agav. They're drawn along with the original intention. What?
The flow-on effect.
Perhaps. I don't know what that means, but maybe.
The flow, like a river flows, so the flow-on effect, like basically someone benefits at the top, someone benefits at the middle, someone benefits at the bottom. The flow-on effect.
Yeah. Perfect. So, and this is the concept of giving over the shoulder. That it's not that Hashem made the entire world so that the ministers, so that the servants that make the food can have sustenance and whatnot. Hashem made the world. It says that this world is compared to a wedding feast, and it says in Pirkei Avos, and you should prepare yourself in the hall. We're in the hall right now. We're waiting to go into the wedding feast. When Mashiach comes, we're gonna have the feast, and that's the ikar of the world. And the job is to prepare ourselves right now. So I actually think that it's an interesting mashal to give, because it also has maybe another point that we can glean from it, which is that the world, the feast, wouldn't really be able to function without the smaller servants. The smaller servants are the ones that are making the food. He's medayik to say the ones that are acher chayim, the ones that are behind the millstones grinding the flour. And without them, the feast wouldn't really be able to happen. Now, of course, Hashem could have, unrelated, Hashem could do anything in the whole thing of the world, and technically he could have made just like the notion of a feast with ministers, whatever. But part of the scheme of a feast is that you have the people that are the workers, the waiters, etc., the people in the kitchen that are making the food, and everyone is important. It's not to say that no one is important. And obviously it's important that everyone gets fed, because if they don't get fed, then you're not going to be able to have a feast. Part of it's a system, but in the system, there's what's the essence of the system. What is it what really matters in the system? As in the notion of why does the system exist? And over here, the system exists not for the servants. It exists for the ministers. It exists for the chashva people. So in the nimshal, when you have the side of kedusha, the side of kedusha is the ikar. The sitra achra is there, and the sitra achra gets chayes, and it's not given necessarily in like a begrudging way per se, but it's given in a way. It's not that that's the ikar. It's something that comes along in a side kind of way. Any questions? Okay, I think we got end a little bit early, maybe.
Kitzur?
All right, the kitzur. Thank you. So the kitzur is sitra achra of akum kabim shifim me'achirayim, that the other side and goyim receive their sustenance from a level of achirayim, from a way of giving over the shoulder. The kedusha Yisrael nimshach shafa pnimis, in holiness the Yidden get. They get sustenance from a more internal aspect. Achirayim come on the shadi basar kaspoy. The level of achirayim is like someone that gives over the shoulder. Primis umezonei the inner aspect of Hashem's will and His desire. And the parable for this, the analogy, is the king that he makes a feast for his servants and his great and his ministers and his great servants, that they are the main focus of his will and his desire. So the smaller servants receive sustenance from the leftovers, and also the dogs receive in a way that the bones that are thrown out, the dogs get to eat and they get to enjoy.
I still struggle with the idea of if it's given reluctantly to a goy, why are some goyim given so much? Not we could talk financially in regards to family, like some yidden for their whole lives have been trying to have children but can't have children, but yet a goyim who is, we can say that they're nice people, but there's certain ones that we know of that are not very nice people, have many, many children. Mm-hmm. And so that yid that in the hypothetical situation I'm saying could be a tzaddik or at least a banei, but yet Hashem hasn't blessed them with children. I really struggle with.
So this is something that we're going to discuss a little bit later. I think maybe when we get to the chafs. It's a concept. There's just to give like a brief explanation in a sense. Very often, what can happen is that there's sustenance that's given. So I feel like I need to explain. We have 2 minutes, so it's actually good because I wanted to explain this. There's a difference between shefa and and there are 2 terms that are used in Chassidus. They're not used interchangeably. But they both mean giving some kind of vitality. Like we say that there's an that shines into the world from and safe, etc. That's one level. And then there's another level which is shefa. Now, in general, you would say that the difference between and shefa, the breaking point at which becomes shefa, if you will, is after atzilus. That there's ein safe, shines into the world, shines from the world is created with Ein Sof, but it's created with this very intense revelation that doesn't have any end, doesn't have any measure. It just goes, and that goes until Atzilus. Then when we get to the world, we're in a world of limitations, and there's some kind of medium that happens in Atzilus where you take the infinite and you're able to make it into, in some way, to refine it smaller and smaller, or not really smaller and smaller, but kaviyachol, until it gets to a point where you can actually have a world of limitations. So after it's in Atzilus, and in Atzilus is where the Shefa is really made. The Shefa is the sustenance that we get down here, in a spiritual sense, but that's where it is, that's where it's stored, that's where it's rooted, that's where it's created in Atzilus. Then it goes down into lower levels. And sometimes you can have a lot of Shefa, and the Shefa just doesn't come down. So that's why there's a famous story of the Baal Shem Tov, that there was a person and he had a lot of money, and Baruch Hashem was happy and healthy, he had a wife, etc. He wanted kids, he didn't have kids, so he went to the Baal Shem Tov, and he said that he wants to have kids. So Baal Shem Tov said, look, you could either, there's two things that I could do. Either you need to lose your money, or you need to die. This, one of the two things. So the guy chose to lose his money, so he lost all of his money right away, and he had a kid within a year. And the reason why this happened in this way, it's not that Baal Shem Tov was like one of those like old witches in the fairy tales. The reason why it happened in this way is because there's three channels of ways that Shefa comes down. There's banei, chayei, and umezonei, like the classic bracha you've probably heard by Farbrengen. There's children, there's life, and there's sustenance. I keep on translating Shefa as sustenance, so it probably gets confusing. But these are the three channels through which things go. So material blessings come down in the sense of like good parnasa, good living situation, etc., etc. These come down in the form of umezonei. And banei is children, and chayei is life, it's health, physical well-being, not just in an external aspect. So this person had enough shefa for two of them. He didn't have enough shefa for three of them. Now, usually what a tzaddik is, the chiddush of a tzaddik is, a tzaddik can try to make new hashpas and whatever it is, and that's the tzaddik's business in a sense. But what makes a tzaddik, in a sense, skilled as opposed to holy, what makes a tzaddik skilled is having the ability to take the shefa and to be able to direct it into the channel that the person wants the shefa to be directed into. Sometimes a person just has shefa and it's stuck up there, and there's like a blockage in all of the pipes that are running down here, and a tzaddik can perhaps unclog those. Sometimes a tzaddik can divert it. But you could have a person that has shefa, and the shefa will come down. You could have a person and it won't, and sometimes it's something that he needs to do, or sometimes it's something that is just beyond his ability and it's waiting for him when Mashiach comes. Very often, Goyim will have hashpa, and I'm a little bit over at this point, but very often Goyim will have hashpa, and the hashpa, Hashem wants it to come down here. Dafka, Hashem is doing the work to make sure that it comes down here, so that he doesn't stay a Baal Chayv. But whatever shefa a person amasses doesn't just stay up there. It's when Mashiach comes, he'll have an appreciation of it. But the reason why Goyim can have so much, it's not the notion of so much as there is so much compared to other people. Because you're not forgetting the fact that a guy has something good. It's about why does the guy have good when good people don't, and that's the reason why a guy would have something good when another person doesn't. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sure.